Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another video talking about the F1 2019 game and some game ideas, and this is directly coming off the back of the real-life 2019 Bahrain Grand Prix. We did this for Australia. Basically, I don't know about you guys, but when I always watch a real-life Grand Prix weekend, it always gets me buzzing about the actual game as well, because you see certain scenarios that happen in real life, and you think, it'd be so cool to have that in the game, and, to play through certain scenarios and have things happen to you in the game would be so sick off the real-life kind of events, basically. And so these are going to be 6 different ideas that I want to see in the F1 2019 game, already future games in general, because I think that especially the last one I've got here on this list is very in-depth, and I think it's very out there for an idea that they could actually implement this quickly into the next year's game, especially also because a lot of these ideas, we're only two months out from the new game now, so a lot of these ideas are already more future F1 game ideas, but, we can always be a bit wishful, basically, in these kind of game ideas list videos. So let's get into then. So 6 ideas that I want to see in the F1 2019 game or future F1 games directly off the back of the real-life Bahrain Grand Prix. So number 1 is going to be the simulation of flat spots on the tyres and the vibration you get off the flat spots. We've seen it in the past plenty of times when drivers make a mistake and they really badly flat spot their tyre, and in some cases their entire race strategy then is ruined. I remember all the way back to, I think it was the Brazilian Grand Prix, Lance Stroll, I think at the time he was in a Williams, obviously flat spotted his tyres in the opening laps of the Brazilian Grand Prix and pretty much wrecked his entire strategy. He had to pit early, basically, because the vibrations were so bad, and basically he just couldn't drive as quickly on those tyres. And I think we need to see that, because also, especially, this weekend, we saw with Vettel's spin, he flat spotted his tyres. He also delaminated his rear tyres, I believe, or one of the rear tyres. I think it might be in the left rear, I think, because that was the one with the most load in the spin he had, and Pirelli confirmed there was delamination to that, where the tyres basically breaking apart in a way, and he flat spotted all 4 tyres, and you saw the vibration from that delamination and the flat spots basically vibrated the car so much where the front wing, which was always, I think, already maybe a little bit fragile anyway, basically just flew off the car. And obviously we saw those amazing sparks and that great shot down that back straight, and that was all due to, the flat spot after the spin. And so I think they need to simulate flat spots a lot more and less dramatically, just when you lock up into turn 1, let's say at Monza, for example. I remember Hamilton one time in a qualifying lap locked up on the front right, and then the commentators were straight away, well, he's absolutely screwed himself now for the race start, because it's going to be a pretty hard first stint to deal with that flat spot on that tyre he has to start on for the Grand Prix. So, it would just add a different element to the race in terms of the way you look after your tyres and really make sure you're not slamming on the brakes too much. In this year's game, it is quite lenient on F1 2018 in terms of the way you slam on the brakes and lock up. It is quite, easy to negotiate a corner even if you do lock up, and I feel like a locking up needs to just be a bit more in terms of losing that, braking force. And then also after that, even once you've rotated the tyre through, I think there needs to be a penalty of that flat spot simulation. I think it would be a lot better and a lot more like it is in real life in a directly comparison to the real life Bahrain Grand Prix. Number 2, now this was a big event at the Bahrain Grand Prix, but I think there needs to be more detailed engine failures. We've mentioned this before, but this got me thinking even more specific. Let's forget about MGK, MGH, failing on the car. I think there needs to be literal in the actual internal combustion engine. They need to break down their engine into cylinders, because what we saw is Ferrari, and was basically confirmed that it wasn't actually an MGH or a K problem for Leclerc. It was actually he lost a cylinder that just wasn't there, and that's why also he had to try and save some fuel as well, because he had one less cylinder to work with. So I think there needs to be on the heads-up display, literally, you have this 6 cylinders, and you could lose 1 cylinder. So it's very specific failures, and then you have the ability to finish the rest of the Grand Prix, because a lot of the time on F1 2018, if you have a part failing on your engine, let's say the MGK or H, when it starts to wear down to 20%, you feel the car slowing down, but not that much, and then it gets to 100%, obviously, and it just, you're donezo. You're going to DNF out the Grand Prix. So I think it'd be really great to have the engine be in a way where when you're getting down to 20% wear or 15% wear, it really slows you down noticeably, a lot like we had with Leclerc, the 2 Mercedes just walking past him basically, but you're still able to maybe limp back around and try and finish the race still, but you're so down on power, and you do get that, like I said, but I feel like they need to make it even more so, because I remember I've had races where I've been on a very worn gearbox even, or a very worn turbo MGH, and even on 20% I've still been able able to keep my positions basically until it went to 100%, and then I failed and I DNF'd out of the Grand Prix. But up until then, it was quite manageable. So I think they need to make it a bit more of a tricky task when you're really getting down to those warm parts that you really struggle basically. And that goes back to my saying of there needs to be more randomness about, oh, randomly my engine's going to go from 80% worn to 30% worn. It might not be the best thing and it might annoy you at the time, but it's going to be a lot more realistic in the game. And also, if it happens to you more often than the AI, then it makes things fair, because how often do AI get kind of random failures, random punches, and just basically get random bad luck, and so the player just doesn't get a lot of that. So it would kind of level out the playing field and make career mode a lot more interesting. And also for online, if you got that would spice up a league race season to no end as well. Number 3 is going to be better characteristics with the tyres from car to car. We saw this weekend the Mercedes car clearly preferred the medium tyre compared to the soft tyre, and the Ferraris went very well on the soft. So I think there's already a little bit of that in there, because from team to team, I have noticed, certain teams do prefer to be a bit more aggressive on their strategy, or they can't keep the tyres in check as much as other teams. But I think there needs to be that kind of really in-depth look into how teams kind of are across the season and kind of trying to simulate that in the game. So, if you drive for Mercedes, as a team, as a driver, you're going to have to maybe go for the harder compounded tyres, but maybe you can push harder on those harder compounded tyres and get the performance out still and get the same lap time that a different car could on softer tyres. And having that difference, because clearly it has been a pattern really in the last, month or so, that Mercedes have preferred harder tyres and they just don't go too well on soft compounded tyres, and they've actually been caught out in terms of trying to stretch soft tyres too long, because they know that they need to go onto a set of hard tyres to go to the end of the Grand Prix. So I think it was plain and simple at Bahrain. Hamilton definitely looked a lot better. He was able to move the car around with more aggression on that medium compounded tyre compared to the first part of the race, where yes, it was dusty, yes, they were trying to dial into the Grand Prix due to the conditions as well, but Hamilton just didn't look that comfy. Bottas neither as well. Obviously he had some issues of his own, but I think they need to do better tyre simulation basically from team to team to have that characteristic. They kind of almost, they did have, I don't know if it's psychological, but I feel like they did it better in previous games almost, because I remember back to F1 2015 even, which was obviously not a great game, but F1 2015, I remember like the Lotus team was always horrendous on soft tyres, and so you had to always go to harder tyres, and the Ferrari was very good on soft tyres and keep its tyres in check very, very well. So I think they need to go back more to that. I feel like they've almost lost that in a way, due to the way they've got the new tyre compound with the tyre carcass. It's kind of leveled all the teams together, and just you have this one model tyre carcass temperatures going off, whereas I think they need to also try and factor in team to team how a car kind of, behaves on different compounds, track to track. Number 4 is going to be more natural safety car periods. Right now in the F1 game, it's very structured for basically, there are a few instances where the safety car goes out for maybe 3 laps, but that's the maximum, and the usual thing is for the safety car, once it gets called out in the game, it only goes for 2 laps and then comes in. We saw this weekend the race ended under the safety car. I don't think that's even possible on the F1 game. I would love to see a race be able to be ended on a safety car and just have longer periods of safety cars, because like they do in real life, sometimes it takes longer to clear up debris. And also I think they need to add in having the lapped cars unlap themselves to add to that whole procedure, because it might be annoying in real life, but it does happen that the safety car periods are quite long. They go for sometimes 3-4 laps because people need to unlap themselves, even for heck 5-6 laps depending on the kind of circumstances surrounding the entire safety car coming out. So I think there needs to be more naturally looking safety car periods essentially. Right now it's very structured of, okay, safety car's been called out, it's probably going to be this lap and then 2 plus more, and then you're coming in and you do the normal procedure, and there you go. There's never any surprise really. I've been surprised maybe once or twice ever in my career, it's going out for 3 laps here, but that's maybe because the safety car came out on the very edge of a lap, and that's why it surprised me. But apart from that, you can pretty much always guarantee and plan around your strategy basically of a safety car coming out of, okay, I'll pit now, I know it's going to be for 2 laps, and then I'll come out and, Bob's your uncle, the strategy's fine. If the safety car was to surprise you of staying out for 5 laps, then it might change your strategy around, and you might not want to pit, or you might want to pit vice versa, because it could change things for you. Number 5 is going to be track temperatures mean a lot more. They do already kind of factor in a little bit. You do kind of see the track rubbering in, and this is kind of like the same idea as I had previously from the Australian Grand Prix, talking about dust on the circuit, the track evolving, but this is more to just do with the actual just temperatures, not the actual evolution of the track with rubbering in for a street circuit. I'm talking even on Bahrain, we saw, a thoroughbred circuit, a circuit purpose-built for racing, even saw wild swings. Obviously, Bahrain being Bahrain, like Abu Dhabi, FP1 is so unrepresentative, and the same thing with FP3, but you don't really see that in the game. You can still do some good work in practice in FP1 and FP3 in the game and still be fine, and have it be kind of, okay for you to do those practice programs and still be fine for the race strategy, basically. I think they need to change that. And also the track temps themselves need to, really drastically change, I think, a lot more, because you don't really feel like the track's too hot when the sun's out, and then you don't feel that difference in cooling, really. And also that plays into also the fact that there was a lot of wind out there at Bahrain, and that kind of maybe cool down the track a little bit, or just change the temperatures a tiny bit here and there. I think that needs to factor into it, and that kind of goes into my point number 6. Now, this is a very wild idea. This is very hard to simulate, I understand, so this is very much out there, but wind simulation, because we saw at Bahrain, basically, it was a big factor, every team, people say on the radio to the drivers, I think it was Perez on the formation lap, watch out for this certain turn, because there's a headwind, there's a tailwind here, there's a crosswind here, and, the commentary team, Crofton Brundle for Sky, were talking about, if it's a tailwind, you have to try and brake a little bit earlier, because you're coming out the corner a little bit faster. If it's a headwind, you can brake a little bit later into turn 1. Leclerc broke so late compared to Vettel, and was able to make that big dive, because there was a headwind into that corner, and then you got crosswinds as you come into the S section of Bahrain. It's very hard to simulate that, though, because you're literally thinking about simulating moving fluids around the circuit, basically pushing the car around, and there's already so much other simulation going on about the tire temps, the evolution of the track, the car themselves, whatnot. So many variables, so it is a very big thing to ask about wind simulation affecting the cars and pushing the cars a little bit left and right as they go through the circuit, wobbling them a little bit. But it would be a really crazy thing if you turn up to a Grand Prix and then engineer goes, mate, there's a lot of wind, there's about 60k HPH crosswind here, this might change the race. You're going to see the AI make a lot of mistakes, and you might make a lot of mistakes, just watch out. And it just makes the entire thing so much more tense and treacherous, knowing that any moment in time you can make a mistake just because of the wind blowing a little bit further left and right, or back behind you as a tailwind or a headwind. It will just spice things up to no end and just add that kind of tension, like I said, to the entire thing. But that's been my 6 ideas that I want to see in F1 2019, the game, or future F1 games, really, coming off the back of the real-life 2019 Bahrain Grand Prix. If you can think of anything more that you saw at Bahrain that you reckon could be a really cool game feature, and I think they could do in the game in general, in career mode, be it, or multiplayer or whatnot, then let me know in the comments below, guys. If you did enjoy this video, did enjoy the ideas, then be sure to hit that like button. If you are new around here, do subscribe for weekly Formula 1 content. I've been Aarava. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.